Okay. So first of all, good afternoon and welcome to our second pre-application community development block grant CDBG training. My name is Rosie Goldich and I'm the CDBG coordinator here at Community MT. I will be presenting today with our outreach specialist, Gus Byram. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. Please make sure that you are muted. We have reserved time at the end of today's presentation for discussion and questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on our website along with the slides. If you require an alternative version of this presentation, please email doccdd@mt.gov or call 406-841-2770. Here is a brief agenda of our presentation today. We will start with some background about CDBG, then move into how we score and rank projects according to Criterion 6. We will then review the differences between area-wide benefit, limited clientele, and direct benefit projects, and how to prove LMI percentages between the three. Last, we will provide resources and guidance on how to perform an income survey. As I previously stated, discussion and questions will be at the end.
Good afternoon. My name is Gus Byram, outreach specialist with the Montana Department of Commerce Community MT or Community MT Division. And I'm going to cover some of the slides in our presentation. By way of background, very quickly, when Congress passed the when they passed the Community Development Program, it was part of the overall Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. So HUD, prior to 1974, HUD had about 13 different programs, and they all dealt in various areas, of urban renewal and urban recovery and urban redevelopment. And those programs, under the leadership of Carla Hills at that time, Deputy Secretary, pulled those 13 programs together and consolidated them into the single community development block grant program under the Housing and Community Development Act. And that bill was signed by President Ford in the fall of 1974. And by coincidence, this is also the same act that established the current Section 8 program for rent assistance in the United States and here in Montana. But that was a different part of the act. Now, when Congress passed CDBG or Community Development Block Grant or CDBG, they emphasized that the primary purpose of the program was to help local governments meet the greatest needs of their low and moderate income populations. So all the way through CDBG, you'll see that common thread showing that your proposed project will in fact help low and moderate income, or what we call LMI households. Now, right in the Act, I define what does constitute an LMI household. And they established the two thresholds of 50 to 80% of the area median family income as established by the census was determined to be moderate income. Then less than 50% of the median family income was low income. And there are some distinctions that we'll talk about later in the presentation. But it's all about proposals at local governments demonstrating to the state or to HUD, of course, that the primary beneficiaries of the activity will be low and moderate income people. So Congress said that each project must meet at least a minimum of 51% benefit to low and moderate income populations to be eligible for assistance. And of course, there are many different ways to do that. We're going to talk about that in the presentation this afternoon. So thank you, Rosie.
CDBG as Gus previously stated, CDBG utilizes the same income limits as the Section 8 program. These are available on HUD's website. As you can see on the slide, the median family income for Lewis and Clark County, according to the 2023 income limits, is $104,100. A quick reminder, median is defined as the midway point, with half of the data below and half above. Median is not the same as average. HUD defined, quote, moderate income as 80% of the median family income. So for a family of 4 in Lewis and Clark County, that would be $83,800 as seen here. 50% of the median family income would be $52,050 as seen on the top row. Therefore, 51% of Lewis and Clark County's population must make under $83,300 for a family of 4 to qualify for CDBG funding. And you can find these numbers and these income limits for your county at the website listed here. The 2023 income limits are available, obviously. So for CDBG applications that will be accepted and reviewed in October, we do request that you use the most up-to-date information possible. Okay. In order to be eligible for CDBG funding, a minimum of 51% of the beneficiaries must be documented as persons of low to moderate income or LMI. The benefit to LMI persons can be documented by either an area-wide benefit or limited clientele benefit. There is also direct benefit, which will be discussed later in the presentation. First is area-wide benefit, in which the activity benefits all residents in the particular area. This can be documented by 1, recording the LMI percentage as provided by the 2015 American Community Survey, which is available on our CDBG website at condev.mt.gov under the resources tab at the top. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see a census and target rate tab, and that's where you can find that information. Or you can conduct an income survey. We'll do a dive into income surveys later in this presentation. The next way of documenting LMI is limited clientele benefit. Limited clientele benefits a particular group of individuals that is presumed or assumed to be LMI. On the next slide, I will provide a list of the presumed LMI groups from HUD. I would like to remind people that HUD did create this list. This is not that Commerce or Community Entity did not create this list. You can prove limited clientele LMI through an income survey, demonstrating that the applicant has income eligibility requirements, limiting their activities to low and moderate income persons or households, and demonstrating that the proposed project is of such a nature and in such a location that it can be concluded that clients are primarily low to moderate income persons. Okay. How Criterion 6 is given points and ranked is different than how other criteria for CDBG community and public facilities is ranked. Points are awarded based on the LMI percentage of the applicant and their community. If a community has under the required 51% LMI beneficiaries or does not present sufficient LMI documentation, they receive 0 points and are deemed as an ineligible project. If the project has 51% to 74.9% LMI beneficiaries, the project will receive 120 points. If the project has 75% or greater LMI, or is a limited clientele project with sufficient documentation, then they will receive 150 points. Contrary to other CDBG scoring criteria, this is an entirely objective criterion. Program specialists who review this criterion are simply looking at the LMI percentage and ensuring that applicants have the required documentation. I will explain what limited clientele is on the next slide. Okay, as previously addressed, how it assumes that this list of limited clientele groups are low to moderate income. This demonstrates that a proposed activity will primarily assist LMI households within a particular group or clientele, usually documented by a federal program or assistance qualification data. The list of limited clientele groups includes abused children, elderly persons, which are considered age 62 and over, battered spouses, homeless persons, severely disabled adults and or children, illiterate adults, persons living with AIDS, and migrant farm workers.
So thank you, Rosie. All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in regards to probably the most common starting point to determine benefit to low and moderate income, and that's the area one. So like we talked about a few moments ago, you take a look at your area benefit, your area percent low and moderate income to provide documentation that at least 51% of your proposed beneficiary population consists of low and moderate income people. And in these cases of area-wide, the actual project boundaries must be clearly delineated because they determine which households will be served. So the examples of water well project that would be part of the town's existing water supply system, which would benefit all residents that receive water. So in CDBG, the most common application of area-wide benefit is for a comprehensive community-wide water project or wastewater project, because you have a clearly defined boundary, usually is within the city limits of the municipality. And it's very easy to see who's, of course, within that community and who's paying the rates and user charges to support that system. So in these cases, you start with the website, and Rosie just gave you the location, but going under our community MT under resources, then under target rate, you go into that site, you enter in the name of your community, and then right there, you're going to see popped up the basic information that we use for socioeconomic data, low and moderate income, as well as other information for the community development division. So, like for instance, on the left-hand side, you'll see the example of Helena, and you'll see the population, total households, median household income, the low and moderate income percent. So in Helena's case, it's 42.1. So right off the bat, that tells you that Helena, according to this data, would not be eligible for citywide water or wastewater assistance. The low and moderate income is just too low, and then the percent poverty. Now, these tables are also used very much by our sister Montana Community, by the Coal Endowment Program. So you'll see there's also target rate information, which relates to specific requirements of the MSEP and as well as CDBG, that in the case of water and wastewater projects, your rates, your monthly rates have to be at least those at those levels to be eligible for grant assistance. But for the purposes of our conversation this afternoon, you want to look at that low and moderate income percent. So on the right-hand side, Rosie called up and added the community of Lewistown. Now, when you look at Lewistown, they're 52.8. So that tells us that Lewistown would be eligible for an area-wide project without having to consider limited clientele or direct benefit or other means to document benefit to LMI. So according to the applicable HUD data, again, Lewistown's over 51%. So they meet that HUD requirement. And would be then eligible on the basis of low and moderate income area-wide benefit to receive the CDBG funds. Now, the same data then is available for all of our incorporated, on the same tables here, all of our incorporated cities and towns, all of our counties, and as well as the census designated places, which are, as you know, are unincorporated. So these tables are very, very useful. And if for some reason you cannot locate your community, let's say it's a very, very small community, and you may not have a census designated place that corresponds to the boundaries of your district, let us know, and we'll see if we can perhaps come up with lower moderate income percentages through another avenue. Thank you, Rosie. All right, now, we wanted to include this example of a project that was recently funded to participate in the funding of the new fire station at Hamilton. And this is a good example of how we would go in and look at census block group data to actually show that still a majority of the beneficiaries are low and moderate income. So if you go in and just look at the area-wide test, the city of Hamilton, yes, is over 51% low and moderate income. But in the case of the Hamilton Fire Station, it serves an outlying Hamilton Rural Fire District. So anyone that receives service from this fire station will be, of course, entitled to benefits, from the new fire department, whether or not you live in the city of Hamilton or outside, just so long as you're in the boundaries of the fire service area or the fire district. So in this case, to show, be able to demonstrate compliance with the area-wide requirement and to show HUD that this project is in compliance with the statute, we went in and we worked with the community, and they gave us the map of the rural fire district boundary showing all the citizens that would be benefited. And in the case of this proposal, there are actually 13 census block groups. You can see the map there in Hamilton and around the community that have low and moderate income data. So, and pardon me, then HUD gives us a methodology whereby you simply take the total population of the area. This comes from an aggregation of the census block groups. In this case, total population was 18,395 persons. The total number of low and moderate income persons that resided within those 13 block groups, including Hamilton, was 9,580. So when you collect the data, in summary, the low and moderate income percent for the overall service area, in other words, the geographic area whereby people will be benefiting from the new fire station, turns out to be 52%. Because you simply take 9,580 divided by 18,395, and that gives you 52%. And of course, the 52% pushes you over the 51% requirement. So now we have a website, and do you want to go ahead and try here?
Sure.
Yeah, we've got enough time here. We're going to give you a little example. Okay. Now, and Rosie, before we go further, as you have time, I would encourage local governments to click on, and we're not going to do it this afternoon, but you'll see a picture there of Robert Peterson. He is our director of the state CDBG program in Washington, D.C. for HUD. He has an excellent video on the same process that I'm talking about, how you can look at census block group data in relationship to a service or benefit area, and then compute the CDBG benefit in those cases where just looking at strictly municipal boundaries are not applicable. Okay, so now Rosie, if you go to the right-hand side, just click on map application. Then once you get to this screen, you go on the upper left-hand corner and you click on the map. This is very, very helpful information. And then you see the whole course of North America there. And then let's look at Hamilton. Rosie's just going to type in Hamilton, Montana. There we are, there we are. And then, so this is very, very useful information, not only for CDBG, but for doing all kinds of things, because of course they're great aerial maps. And then also it helps you show where are your concentrations of low and moderate income people. So Rosie just pulled up Hamilton there. You can see the airport there on the northeast part of town. Of course, Lyme there in the southern portion of Ravalli County. So now, Rosie, if you take your cursor and go up to the symbol of the stacked pieces of paper, pages there, and just click on that. And then we're just going to show it so you can see data for block groups, the place, which would be just for Hamilton County subdivision census data, or just for the county. So,
Hey, guys.
yes.
This is Chandler. Sorry. Rosie, we can't see your screen when you're going through this right now. We still see the Hamilton Fire Station slide.
Oh,
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
Okay, thank you, Chandler. Okay. Well, maybe I'll just go back to this, but it's all available under HUD Exchange. And the map I'm describing includes the low and moderate income data for each of the block groups. So then you tally the population and the number of LMI persons to come up with the overall percent.
Sorry about that, everyone. I didn't realize that you couldn't see it.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought I wanted to be able to see.
And this link is available in the slides that will be sent out.
But again, it's still a very, very useful tool. You can find it very quickly. Again, you can go to that link, or you can just go to HUD Exchange and type in Community Development Block Grant Program, Low and Moderate Income Data, and you will find these maps. Thank you, Chandler. Another way to document benefit to low and moderate income is through direct benefit. So you might have a community that is only, say, 41% low and moderate income, and you would think, well, they're not eligible for any CDBG activity. Well, that's not true, because under direct benefit, you can still have situations where, as it says in the slide, the project will provide direct assistance to an income eligible household. So this is used on housing rehabilitation projects all the time, because the benefit of the project goes to the occupants of that household. So in this case, if the individual presents their annual household income information and they fall below the income limits that Rosie was describing, they would be eligible for direct benefit assistance. The other fairly common tool in our water and wastewater projects is a public facility project in water and wastewater that proposes to pay utility hookup charges, assessments, or even service lines for low and moderate income households. So, and then as we say on the right-hand side, in these cases, under the administration of the local government, low and moderate income applicants, the households that are applying for direct CDBG assistance, must qualify in according to the most current income limits for the county in which the project is located. And then each individual household applicant for direct CDBG assistance must provide adequate documentation of their gross annual income. So some of you that have been involved in water and wastewater projects know that under several of our other programs, like Montana Coal Endowment Program and many of the EPA programs, it is not permissible to use those federal funds in those programs to make an improvement or to fund an improvement that falls on private property, because it's not public land. Well, in CDBG, it is eligible because the Community Development Block Grant Program has a long, long history of rehabilitating houses and, fixing up people's homes, which of course falls on private property. So there's a long tradition of trying to assist and upgrade the conditions of those individual lots as well. So under CDBG, it's perfectly fine. Usually in combination with the MSEP funds or state revolving funds or USDA funds for CDBG to pay for hookup charges, assessments, or even those service lines. And we have found over time that the ability of CDBG to pay those service lines is just an indispensable part of the overall project. Because in some cases, the cost of, for instance, hooking up those households and service line can amount to many thousands of dollars. And if you do not have a mechanism to pay for that, even though you're putting brand new water and sewer pipe out in the street, or you're building a new wastewater treatment plant, you're going to find some citizens that just say, we don't have the funds though to hook up to it. We don't have the monies to pay for that service line. So long as they're low and moderate income, and it's of course compatible with your budget, CDBG can pay for those service lines, and as well as those hookups, or even impact fees or other charges, for instance, that go along with the project, all as part of mitigating the cost and impact on the low and moderate income household. So it becomes a very, very important tool, because then you have a way to muster broad community support for the project, as opposed to being vulnerable to the charge that, well, it's a great project, but it's too expensive, because even though you have a great water and sewer proposal, the service connection charges on low and moderate income households are not covered, and therefore, they can't, the project's too expensive, because many households can't afford to pay that service line connection cost. Right? So, thank you.
Okay, conducting an income survey. If a community falls between the 51% LMI requirement, they are ineligible for CDBG assistance for area-wide projects unless documented by a Commerce-approved income survey. These are the required application materials for an income survey. The survey tool itself, which must be approved by Commerce staff before the application is submitted. Please include the written approval in your application. The distribution method, are you sending this survey through email listservs, at a public event, at public meetings, door knocking, etc. Response rate, please include the math and calculations found in documenting benefit to LMI person's handbook on our website. We do require a minimum response rate, so please ensure you have met that. This is a very important reminder to not include the filled out surveys with your application. Due to the sensitive nature of what these surveys document, we do not want to read them. However, but the survey responses do need to be kept in a secure location for 5 years in case of monitoring or audit. These are some great income survey resources that can be found on the HUD Exchange on our website, condev.nt.gov. The HUD Income Survey Toolkit includes sample surveys and questions, reminder cards, and data entry methods. Also includes distribution method examples and different case studies of how to complete your income survey. Reminder, even if you use a sample survey from HUD, you are required to receive Commerce approval and include that income survey as a method of LMI documentation for your CDBG project. The Documenting Benefit to Low and Moderate Income Persons Handbook, which is found on our website, Also includes examples of income surveys, which I will show you in a moment. This handbook is found on our website under the CDBG Public and Community Facilities tab. Okay. This is the first example of an income survey. This is found in the documenting benefit to LMI persons handbook found on our website. This is at the end of the handbook in the exhibit section. This is entitled Model Household Income Survey for Area-Wide CDBG Projects. On the left-hand side, you will see the cover page, which includes the definition of annual income. It includes the purpose of the survey, as well as an area at the top to customize your survey. And then on the right-hand side, this includes the questions themselves. So how this would be filled out is where you can see above and then the long line. The survey respondent would select their family size. They could and say what their income is above and what it is below, and they would place an X behind the word that applies. And then they would sign and date and so on. This is the standard income survey for CDBG. The next sample income survey is called Model Survey Cover Letter for Area-Wide Projects, Area-Wide CDBG Projects. Once again, this includes a cover letter that states what city or town is applying, or if you are using a grant admin or another third party to complete your income survey, it would be done on behalf of. This includes, you would also need to include the definition of what income is so that your community knows. As you can see on the right-hand side, those are the definitions. And then someone would simply fill out what their gross total household income is. You would want to use this survey in case you wanted to create a new median household income for your project. If you are using additional funding sources in addition to CDBG. For example, if you were to use RD funds or Montana Coal Endowment funds and wanted to create a new median household income for your project, you could use this survey tool to meet the CDBG and MSEP requirements. And once again, at the bottom, people would fill out their name and address and so on and sign it. So the difference between, let me just go back. The difference between this survey and the next survey is that in the first option, people would choose a range of where their income is, their household income. And then on this survey, they would simply put the number of what their total gross household income is. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Sure.
Yeah, and then just add a little bit more on what Rosie is presenting. In the case of option 3, to explain that a little bit more, sometimes you'll have a community that feels that the median household income figure as provided off our census data is not realistic. For instance, let's say the median household income for a community is $80,000. Well, that means according to the census, under median, about half the families are earning more than $80,000, and then half the families are earning less. And let's say you have community leaders in the city council feeling that 80,000 is too high a figure. Most folks in the community just do not make that. They don't feel that the figure is realistic. And so they say, well, we feel it would be to our advantage to conduct an actual income survey, as Rosie has described here under option 3. Now, it is a significant step, but by going through this process, the community hopes to then come up with a new median household income figure. And the only way you can do that under statistics, of course, is to first of all have enough returns, but then of course, to be able to do a full tally of all of those numbers for the individual households in the town and then determine the new median. And the reason communities do this is because particularly the Montana Coal Endowment Program has specific requirements relating to target rate. And the community says, well, if we can have a lower MHI, then according to the formula that determines the target rate, they may be eligible for a larger grant, say 750,000, rather than 500,000 under MSEP. So that's why some communities decide if they're looking at MSEP funding or USDA funding, they'll decide to go ahead and prepare the actual income survey to hopefully come up with a lower target rate, and then of course have a greater chance of accessing grant dollars from from the Montana Coal Endowment Program as well as USDA. And for instance, like in the case of USDA, it might make all the difference in terms of qualifying for a grant or else having to receive a loan. And of course, loans have to be paid back. So communities, of course, would much rather receive the grant. And by doing the actual income survey, they may qualify for the grant from USDA.
Thanks, Jess. And that is actually the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are now going to open the floor for discussion and questions. As you can see here, this is Gus's contact information and mine as well. I do want to remind everyone that the next training and last training for CDBG pre-applications is Criterion 7, Implementation and Management, which is on next Wednesday, July 26th at 1:30 p.m. So I will stop sharing the screen so I can see the chat.
Which is Google work. Is that what I would do that?
Okay, do we have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourselves or put something in the chat. And I will put actually the link to this map in the chat, so everyone has it. Sorry about that technical issue, everyone. Please discuss how elderly population meets low income guidelines. You want to take that, Gus?
Yeah. Right. HUD has determined in the establishment of the Community Development Block Grant Program that again, certain general groups are automatically determined to be low and moderate income. And Congress has just decided that elderly folks like folks that would be using a proposed senior citizen center automatically they fall within that limited clientele category, and they automatically qualify then as an eligible LMI population. So the elderly, the homeless, abused children, those are groups that again, HUD has said there's no question they are automatically deemed to be primarily comprised of low and moderate income persons. So in the history of the CDBG program, we have funded multiple senior centers as an example, as well as nursing homes and similar medical facilities that primarily assist elderly persons. Good question. Good question.
Can you also add a link to last week's presentation? We are working on getting the presentations from last week up on our website. So actually the link will just be our website, which is condev.nt.gov. And I will send out an email to the participants when that information has been posted. So sorry about the delay.
Or remind folks again.
Oh, thanks, Gus. Whole important point, the next CDBG Community and Public Facilities application deadline is October 4th.
And if you have any questions in regards to, like we touched upon last week, in regards to holding those 2 required public hearings, the needs assessment hearing and the project specific hearing, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Because you still have time to get those done.
Yep. If anyone else has any more questions, like I said, you can find our contact information online. There's a contact page on our website as well. But if there are no further questions, I will close the meeting. So thanks everyone for joining us.